And please let us know as soon as you can, because it really helps everybody. Second is Thursday. We will continue with our koan study, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we're also, because it's a third Thursday and it falls on June 19th, we're going to do the ceremony dedicated to Juneteenth. It's also the summer solstice on the 21st, but this one falling right on the 19th felt like we need to acknowledge this. And the third one is I went to a meeting this morning with the Sanctuary Coalition, and there will be a flyer and more news coming out, but just to give everybody a heads up is that on July 2nd, which is a Wednesday, we're going to try to make this a regular thing. There will be people will fast for the day who want to, in whatever way that means to people. And then on July 2nd, we will also do a vigil at the farmers market in Santa Rosa. And there will be just ways to explain that what we're doing is bearing witness to what's happening, and to vulnerable immigrants, and to populations that are vulnerable and being targeted. So I'll let you know more about that. Zen koans. What in the world? I have to say I never liked Zen koans. But I'm really appreciating them this time around. And I'll just remind people who don't know, or people who do know, and we're using as a source book Zen Echoes, classic koans with verse commentaries by 3 female Zen masters. Miaozhong, a 12th century, the acknowledged first woman Zen master, and then 500 years later, 17th century, two women teachers who made commentary on hers. And it just feels to me like there's just this wonderful resonance of what's this all about anyway? And I was thinking when I was sitting here, or thoughts were going through, I wasn't thinking, no. Maybe the good news in this time is maybe we thought before we knew what was going on, or at least we had some sense that there was some predictability, and everything is just turned upside down, at least in my experience, which is really, I mean, the view from a Zen koan is that the whole world is upside down. And that the way we keep dividing things up and believing that's the whole of it is we're missing the whole world. We're missing. Yes, please. There's this and there's that. But we all know or sense there's something more bigger going on. How can you look at the moon or have a sense of the entire universe and not have a sense of wonder? And actually, that's, I think, the root of these koans is a vast sense of it's exactly what's in front of you. And oh, it's so much bigger than you think. And it's just this. And I think it's deeply reassuring. I gave a talk last night at Valley Streams, on Zoom in Sacramento. I just think it's deeply reassuring to all of us to have some finger pointing at the moon or language that just helps us find some place to sit in the midst of it, that feels like it doesn't leave anything out, that has to do with, it feels aligned with love and compassion and wisdom, and that's just the deepest truth. Anyway, that's what I'm feeling. So all of a sudden these weird koans are feeling like, well, they're weird because it's really hard to describe. Because the minute you put words to it, you make it small, and you have to put words to it. So I will also confess that last night my computer froze, which is, again, you think the world is, you just think, well, then this happens, and then this happens, and then all of a sudden it's like you realize you have no control over anything. And I'm working on getting that world back with a greater awareness that I have no control over anything. But all of my notes about this talk are locked in my computer. So I'm bringing source books, and I will talk us all through it to the degree that I'm able, because we're also using, we're going to talk about in the Blue Cliff Records, it's case number 6. And the title of it is Manjushri asks Vimalakirti about non-duality. I'm using Wick's commentary on the Blue Cliff Records, the Book of Equanimity, Illuminating Classic Zen Koans. It's a great book that talks normal English and kind of helps you access. And I'm also, because some of you will remember that I think it was about a year ago, we were studying the Vimalakirti Sutra here. And I was having fun going back to, because we used Joan Sutherland's, who's also in a koan tradition, her Vimalakirti and the Awakened Heart, a commentary on the sutra. So I'm going to call on all of those. You ready? Okay. So I'm going to start with Wick. And in the Book of Serenity, Vimalakirti's non-duality is case 48. And it's not in the Book of Serenity, for those of you who care or don't care. So just to review the sutra a little bit, help us remember, or to remember anew. Vimalakirti, who is a famous layperson. It's really important that Vimalakirti was lay, because most of these stories are all about people who were priests or monastics, or so Vimalakirti is, we're so grateful for him. He made a really clear decision. No, I'm a lay person. That's who I am. And he's sick in bed. And the Buddha hears about this and says to his followers, Vimalakirti is sick. Someone should go and inquire after him. Ask him how he is. I mean, it's like somebody in the Sangha is sick. Would you just go visit them and ask? But it's great, because all of the bodhisattvas in the assembly, and there's a whole bunch of them, one after another, say, no way. This guy, we've been there, and he messes with us, and I don't understand who he is or what he's doing. Or here it says, they've previously encountered Vimalakirti in a Dharma dialogue, and he had bested them, or he made them uncomfortable. So, because his realization was so deep, they were afraid to even encounter him. The Buddha, not to let go of things, says to Manjushri, the bodhisattva of wisdom, Manjushri, you can do this. Come on, just go. So Manjushri can't back out, but he says, according to Wick, all right, I'll go, but I want all the other bodhisattvas to go with me. And so they all went to visit Vimalakirti. And if you'll remember, he's in a little 10 by 10 room. It's just this very humble room that's a sick room. It's just him and his bed. So this is for everybody, for whatever they've set him up to be, he's just there laying in his bed in a very small, humble room. And into that room arrive 32 bodhisattvas and 32,000 arhats. So we already know we're in another realm, right?
Yeah.
For something like this to be able to happen. Okay, so then I'm going to switch over to, because one of the best parts of this, I think, is if those of you who remember Joan Sutherland, she talks about, instead of enlightenment, endarkenment. that this is really about being on the earth, being a human being, not elevating yourself and not ascending out of here, but just being here with everybody. And what happens here is so Vimalakirti is sick. But for Vimalakirti, dealing with a dis-ease, notice dis-ease, isn't simply a matter of eliminating a problem. He's interested in how can we be free in whatever circumstances we find ourselves, wherever we are along the spectrum of sick or well, which seems particularly relevant to today. However sick or well we think our culture is, or we are in any given moment in terms of how we're being with this world. So in his answers to Manjushri's question, he lays out a process of healing the human heart that takes time, attention, and care. Without waiting for answers, Manjushri asks Vimalakirti, can you bear it? Can you bear it? Can you bear it? And then he asks, could the treatment be making you worse? Joan Sutherland says, anyone who's taken up a spiritual path will wonder at some point whether the treatment is worse than the disease. I didn't know I was afraid. And then all of a sudden there's all this fear. Man, I did not know how confused. My thoughts are like, whoa. But somehow we stumble into this, and this is part of it. Then how did you get this? Next, how long have you had it? And finally, how can it be extinguished? And Vimalakirti's answer is, this is from the sutra, his famous words. He says, I am sick because the whole world is sick. If everyone's illness were healed, mine would be too. Why? Because bodhisattvas come into this world of birth and death for the sake of all beings. And part of being in this world of birth and death is getting sick. When everyone is liberated from illness, I will be too. Part of coming into this world is being uncomfortable, is feeling things we don't want to feel, seeing things we don't want to see. I am sick because the whole world is sick. This is the purest formulation of Vimalakirti's absolute, unquestioned, unmitigated, unbuffered, uncompromised allegiance to this world. I am the world and the world is me, and we have one condition. Here is my condition out of which everything else flows. When I can touch this without twitching, abide here without fleeing, what naturally flows into me from the sea of the world is bodhicitta, which is love. What's naturally here. When I can just be here, sit, touch the earth, breathe, presence. The intention towards awakening and of understanding that we're not separate from everybody else. Because my awakening and knowing this is the world's awakening. And I am waking up because the whole world is waking up. If you're uncomfortable, we're being uncomfortable with and for the whole world. We can do this. We can help each other do this. And the more we do that, the more appropriate response arises, the more just moment after moment. Nobody knows how to get out of this or even what getting out of it looks like. But more and more, there will be just moments of touching and being touched by the whole world that isn't distanced, isn't in the world of self and other. A bodhisattva simply has the willingness to put this commitment in the center and then spending the rest of your life figuring out what that means every day. How to be here with and for all beings. This is how a bodhisattva, a yearning and intention, enters the world of birth and death for the sake of all beings. We begin, and then the birth is midwifed by our family, our loved ones, our co-workers, the world, our companions on the way. And I would say it's midwifed also by what's making us uncomfortable. contractions. Anybody who's given birth or maybe heard about it, or maybe even imagined just being uncomfortable in this world. This is it. Okay, so now we'll go back to, thank you for letting me go on that little bit, because that's, I love that. Then the second big moment, actually the big moment for most people, is called roaring silence or thunderous silence. We all carry a silence within us. It is the womb in which awakening gestates, where a peaceful and generous heart takes form. It is the source of a powerful, non-self-obsessed, courageous energy that flows back into the world as surely as rivers return to the sea. So Vimalakirti says to all of his guests who didn't want to come there, which is exactly why they didn't want to come, because he's asking weird questions and he's afraid somebody's going to make them answer, is how does a bodhisattva go about entering the gate of non-duality? Please tell me what you understand about this. So let me just say something about non-duality. Of course, the minute I say something about non-duality, I'm already in duality, because that's, I love that, as I remember Norman Fisher saying, somebody asked him to go to a conference about non-duality, and he said, I have no idea what they're talking about, because the minute you call it non-duality, it becomes something. And that just feels so true. I mean, it's such a, I mean, you have to name it. But then we get in, when I hear people talking about non-duality, it always, I mean, but how do we talk about these things? So Vimalakirti really has them. Says, say something about non-duality. I mean, he's so smart, and they know how smart he is. That makes them really nervous. So each of you, please explain what you understand about that. And then they each step forward, all of them, and offer first a duality and then a resolution to that duality, usually through some kind of philosophical conversation. That's perhaps, anyway, so, you know, it's, you have birth and then you have death. You have good and then you have bad. You have wisdom and you have ignorance, and on and on and on. That's what people, I mean, that's what most of us would probably do, right? Then Manjushri says, well, actually, maybe at this point, I should go into the koans, because that's where the koan takes us. You following me? Mm-hmm. Did I lose you? It's okay. The Vimalakirti recounts how the 30 bodhisattvas each discoursed on the gate of non-duality. And when it came to Manjushri, it was his turn, finally, because everybody else had said something. My understanding is that in all of the dharmas, there are no words, no speech, no teaching, and no acknowledgement, and that to separate oneself from all questions and answers is the way by which bodhisattvas enter the gate of non-duality. He gave it a good try, right? He's trying to cut through, dear Manjushri. And Manjushri asked Vimalakirti about this. You know what Vimalakirti did? Come on, you know.
Smacked him.
He smacked him. No, that's another Zen koan. But that's true. That's one of the things that people do. He stayed silent. But it wasn't a silence that was as opposed to noise or opposed to words. That's what I asked you. What is this silence? What is him saying silence, that the silence that wasn't not saying something? It was an embodiment of something that changed everything in the room, which means it changed everything. It rippled across time and space. What is this great presence? What is this great something that includes and goes beyond? So Manjushri sighed and said, "This is the ultimate in wordlessness and letters. This is the true entry into the gate of non-duality." When he spoke of the entry into the gate of non-duality, 5,000 bodhisattvas all entered the gate of non-duality and achieved the deathless Dharma patience. The commentary usually is to put down dear Manjushri because he couldn't just let it be. He had to say something. It's like Shariputra is please be wise, but also just be present here and don't add anything extra. I mean, it could have been helpful. So here's the commentary by Mahjong, Baochi, and Zuki. You ready? Because then, of course, I'm going to ask you for yours. This is what Mahjong says in the 12th century, reading exactly this, entering exactly this. The old master of Vaisali, that's the name of Vimalakirti's hometown, was skilled at concealing his methods. The thundering sound of his silence penetrated the four directions. The thundering sound of his silence penetrated the four directions. So it wasn't just being quiet. It was like there was something, which I think we experience in Zazen. It's Zazen body. It's just this, but it's also what dropping body and mind is. And it's completely you, but it's not you. And then when you sit in a room with a bunch of people sitting or chanting or moving in a deeper harmony, you really do understand that the sum is bigger than the parts. And we all have our little things that we say and know, and we all have our personalities, but you can taste it, you can feel it when something goes beyond. Okay. Past and present, they all vied to convey the truth of non-duality, but in fact were like children placated by coins of golden leaves. So here's the commentary about golden leaves. You want to hear it? Okay. The parents who show a weeping child the golden leaves from a tree, saying that they are golden coins, are likened to the skillful Buddhas who deter sentient beings from their confusion with descriptions of the joys and pleasures of the heavenly realms. This is a really common, she says, analogy in Chan Zen sayings. It's a lot like the for those of you who remember the Lotus Sutra, it's like I can't remember what it's called, but it's what?
Are you thinking of the wagon?
No, the cart. Well, the cart, but also it's like you give people what they need because you're weeping and you're suffering. So please help people. But just know that that's not the whole thing. You meet somebody where they are. But Vimalakirti was at that point not going to mess around with this. He was just going to cut all the way through for everybody. Okay? Bauchi. Vimalakirti taught by manifesting the silence that is not silence. Vimalakirti taught by manifesting the silence that is not silence. The confused Manjushri's achievement was no achievement at all. Boy, they don't hold back, do they? Sorry. The white sun in the blue sky grabs the fire and runs off with it. So here's the commentary about that. White sun in a blue sky refers to a perfectly clear day, a mind without any clouds of delusion or mental discrimination. I was going to say that to you when I said, what is this silence? Sometimes it's just described as a clear blue sky. And the thoughts are just clouds going through. They come and they go, but there's always this clear blue sky. That's a kind of classic, I think especially I identify with the Tibetan tradition. Make the slightest distinction a thief stealing in broad daylight. She says a thief can have lots of meanings, can describe the activity of a koan or skillful means, both just like thieves coming in trying to take away what you think is going on. It's like pulling the rug out from underneath you, whacking you. Now, please don't whack each other, but just, I think this is our bodhisattva job, is keep pulling the rug out from underneath ourselves when we find ourselves caught in this and that. I mean, please, appropriate response, do what's needed, but to keep checking in, taking a breath, coming back. If you want to call it thundering silence, whatever helps. I'm going to stop in a minute, but I get lots of different commentaries from different people about what's happening in the world right now. And I think his name is Robert Hubble. He has a blog, and he tells you all the news. I mean, I think he's a really smart lawyer who's done Supreme Court work, and also he really tells you good news. I mean, very well. And then at the end, he always says the big perspective, and then he gives you a picture of some kind of picture from the galaxy, which is the same thing. Is yes, this is completely true, and please, let's remember where we are and who we are. Okay, last one. Chan Master Zuki. The mountain is naturally tall, the water naturally deep. Don't use the jasper lute to express what is petty and trite. At the height of spring, the white snow twirls and swirls. Don't fiddle with the gong and shang of this melody. So here's the description. In other words, the whole world is exactly what it is. It's already teaching us everything that we need if we could just be here in each moment, waking up together. The gong and shang refer to the first two notes of the traditional Chinese five-tone musical scale. The suggestion is that there's no need to fiddle with the natural expression of Buddha nature. You don't have to put anything on top of it. You don't have to make it less. You don't have to make it more. But everything is inherently Buddha and Buddha nature. So the whole world is sick. That's why I'm sick. Just if you're sick, be sick. It's a beautiful June spring day and the sunlight is on your skin. Don't miss it. And watch how some things we like and some things we don't, but just, to me, it just feels like such a beautiful, I don't know, it feels to me like Martin Luther King. It feels to me like all the wise ones across time and space, and just some way of showing up just right in the midst of it, where you can feel it's them, but they're standing in the ground of something bigger and deeper, and they're just human beings, clearly. Martin Luther King also was a human being. So I just pulled him out of it. But you might, think about others that maybe that's the question. Is whatever this thundering silence is, or this just isness that is exactly this world, and you can feel it. You can feel it you can feel it in yourself. You can feel it in a moment when something happens that's bigger than time and space, and then it's gone in a split second. You have a sense of what I'm talking about? Yeah, I think we all do. It happens so fast though, and then everything floods back in, and then it's like, and we're so conditioned, the whole world's so conditioned to forget or not remember. So maybe just small groups, find people you don't usually get to talk to. What's all of this mean to you? Can you think of I was talking about this sort of the same way maybe in Sacramento last night, and someone told an experience of being at the protest. And protest, I don't like to call them protests, but I think they were chanting. And somebody who was next to them, who was feeling, there was this feeling of separation. And then all of a sudden there was just this feeling of connection. That because there was something that they were doing together in a particular way, something dropped and opened that was completely relational. And anyway, I think you get the sense of it. Okay, you got about 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Let's do it groups of 3. Give each person just time to do maybe 3 minutes if you want. What's all this mean to you, or what, or just say this is confusing and what I never liked koans either. You can completely that's safe territory too. But if there's anything where you just trust what then spontaneously comes next, because that's probably exactly what's already in the room. Okay. Okay, so groups of 3 new people. I'm putting you guys in groups of 3.